In the heart of the South, when resources were scarce and times were tough, families found ingenious ways to make every meal count. They turned simple ingredients into rich, flavorful dishes that would go on to shape a culinary tradition like no other. Today, we're digging into 50 forgotten soul foods that have faded into history, honoring the creativity and resilience that once filled kitchens with love and flavor. Number 1. Pickled pig's feet. There was a time when pickled pig's feet were a Southern delicacy, served proudly on tables across the South. This dish wasn't just about flavor, it was a symbol of resourcefulness and resilience. In an era when nothing went to waste,
we're cooking up some Southern food. Pickled pig's feet.
Pig's feet, with their tender, gelatinous texture, were transformed into a flavorful, preserved dish that could be enjoyed for days. Pickled pig's feet, with their rich, vinegary tang and garlicky bite, were often served as an appetizer or a side dish, and their distinctive flavor profile became a staple of many African-American homes. The preparation of pickled pig's feet is a labor of love. The feet are first carefully cleaned and then boiled to remove any impurities. Once they're tender, they're placed in a brine made of vinegar, salt, sugar, garlic, and spices. The pickling process is what gives them that unique, sharp flavor that pairs perfectly with the natural richness of the meat. The brine not only preserves the feet, but also infuses them with layers of flavor, from the warmth of peppercorns and the earthiness of thyme to the tangy bite of vinegar. Despite their humble beginnings, pickled pig's feet were considered a delicacy, often enjoyed as a flavorful snack or appetizer during gatherings and special occasions. In some Southern households, they were part of the weekly meal rotation. But as tastes and food trends evolved, this once cherished dish faded from the dinner table. Today, you're less likely to find pickled pig's feet in mainstream restaurants or home kitchens, but for those who grew up with them, they remain an enduring symbol of a time when no part of the animal went to waste, and every bite was savored with appreciation for the effort and love that went into preparing it. While pickled pig's feet may not be as widely made today, the dish still lives on in some pockets of the South, where the memory of its unique flavor and cultural significance remains. For those who remember, the briny, garlicky goodness of a well-prepared pig's foot is a nostalgic taste of the past, one that holds stories of family, tradition, and the kind of home-cooked love that can never truly fade. Number 2. Chitlins, chitterlings. Chitlins, or chitterlings as they're sometimes called, have a long and storied history in Southern soul food. Once considered a humble, even unwanted food source,
to prep your chitlins using 2 important steps.
These cleaned and cooked pig intestines became a symbol of survival and resourcefulness in African-American cuisine. During times when nothing went to waste, chitlins offered a way to make a meal from scraps, and what started as a necessity soon became a deeply beloved dish. Tough, labor-intensive, but bursting with flavor and tradition. The process of preparing chitlins is no easy feat, requiring patience, care, and a steady hand. First, the intestines must be thoroughly cleaned, scraped, washed, and sometimes even soaked to remove any lingering impurities. Once cleaned, the chitlins are slow cooked for hours in a pot, often seasoned with a variety of spices like garlic, onion, and vinegar, and sometimes simmered with a bit of smoked meat to add depth and flavor. The result is a dish that's rich, tender, and distinctly savory, with a taste that, for many, is the essence of soul food. Though chitlins have a distinct, somewhat acquired taste and odor during the cooking process, they have been loved for generations. The dish was especially popular during the mid-20th century, when it was often served during holidays and family gatherings. For African-American communities, chitlins were more than just food. They were a reminder of a time when ingenuity and community were key to surviving hardship. The love and care that went into preparing them became an expression of both pride and resilience. However, in modern times, chitlins have fallen out of favor for many. The process of cleaning and cooking them is time-consuming, and some people no longer appreciate the acquired taste they require. They've largely disappeared from restaurant menus and home kitchens, leaving younger generations less familiar with the dish. Still, for those who remember them, chitlins are an irreplaceable part of soul food heritage, a culinary link to the past, to family, and to a time when resourcefulness and flavor went hand in hand. Despite the challenges they present in the kitchen, chitlins remain an enduring emblem of the creativity, determination, and love that are the heart of African-American cooking. Number 3. Hog maw. Hog maw, often overlooked today, was once a beloved comfort food in many Southern households.
And we're going to make hog maw. Now, hog maw...
This dish, made from the pig's stomach, is a prime example of how resourceful Southern cooks used every part of the animal to create hearty, flavorful meals. In times when nothing went to waste, Hog maw was a way to stretch meals, combining meat, rice, and vegetables into a filling, savory dish. It's a reminder of the ingenuity and determination that defined African-American cooking traditions during periods of hardship. To make hog maw, the pig's stomach was carefully cleaned, then stuffed with a seasoned mixture of pork, rice, onions, garlic, and spices. The stuffed stomach would then be sewn up and slow cooked to allow the flavors to meld, resulting in a tender and flavorful dish with layers of texture, from the soft rice-filled stomach lining to the savory stuffing that accompanied it. The dish was typically served as a main course, often alongside greens or cornbread, creating a satisfying and balanced meal. In the South, hog maw was considered a special dish, often prepared for family gatherings, holiday meals, or any occasion when a hearty, comforting meal was needed. The dish might take some time to prepare, but the slow cooking method allowed the flavors to develop fully, creating a deeply satisfying taste that felt both familiar and extraordinary. It's the kind of dish that speaks to the heart of soul food, rich in flavor, steeped in tradition, and made with ingredients that reflect the values of community and resourcefulness. However, as tastes evolved and more readily available cuts of meat gained popularity, hog maw gradually faded from mainstream menus. The idea of eating pig's stomach may seem unfamiliar or off-putting to many today, but for those who grew up eating it, it remains an irreplaceable part of the past. Hog maw, with its combination of savory stuffing and tender, slow-cooked meat, is more than just a dish. It's a connection to a simpler time when food was crafted with care and every part of the animal had a purpose. While it may not be as common now, hog maw's place in the history of soul food is undeniable, a testament to the creativity and resourcefulness that have long been hallmarks of African-American cooking. Number 4. Beef neck bones. Beef neck bones are a true testament to the resourcefulness that defined much of Southern soul food. Once considered an inexpensive, tough cut of meat,
trying to make some delicious beef neck bones.
beef neck bones were slow cooked to tender perfection and transformed into a flavorful, hearty dish. In the days before farm-to-table restaurants and fancy cuts of beef, people learned to make the most of every part of the animal, and beef neck bones were a reliable go-to for filling and satisfying meals. Cooking beef neck bones requires time and patience. These bones are typically simmered for hours to break down the tough meat and marrow, releasing rich, savory flavors into the broth. Often, they are paired with vegetables like onions, carrots, and celery, seasoned with garlic, bay leaves, and sometimes a splash of vinegar or Worcestershire sauce to balance out the richness. As the beef cooks, the marrow inside the bones imparts a silky, smooth texture to the broth, turning it into a deliciously meaty gravy that coats everything it touches. In many households, beef neck bones were often served over rice, with the gravy absorbing into the tender meat and rice, making each bite comforting and flavorful. It wasn't just a meal, it was a celebration of resourcefulness, a dish that made the most out of what was available. As a symbol of survival, it was often served during family gatherings, providing nourishment and a sense of togetherness at the table. Beef neck bones were not just about food, they were about family, culture, and the joy of sitting down to a meal that took time, care, and love to prepare. However, as tastes have evolved, beef neck bones have fallen out of favor. As supermarkets stock more convenient cuts of meat and fast food and takeout have become easier options, the slow-cooked charm of beef neck bones is often overlooked. But for those who grew up with them, the tender, flavorful meat and rich broth are an unforgettable taste of home. They carry a history of resilience, community, and the kind of soul food that turns simple ingredients into something extraordinary. Number 5. Souse meat. Souse meat, a once popular dish in Southern kitchens, carries with it the flavors and traditions of a time when nothing went to waste. Made from the head of a pig, it was a dish that required patience, care, and respect for the entire animal. With its distinct tangy flavor and gelatinous texture,
we're going to be doing a souse meat recipe. Now guys,
souse meat was a delicacy for many African-American families, often served cold and enjoyed as a snack or part of a meal. To prepare souse meat, the pig's head was first boiled to tenderize the meat and release the flavors from the bones. After being cooked, the meat was deboned and chopped, then pickled with vinegar, spices, and sometimes peppers for an added kick. The mixture was allowed to cool and set, creating a jelly-like consistency that could be sliced into delicate pieces. The end result was a dish that was both savory and tangy, with a texture that some might describe as unique but comforting, especially when served with crackers or bread. In its prime, souse meat was more than just a way to make use of leftover cuts. It was a culinary tradition, often passed down through generations. Its preparation and consumption were part of a broader Southern culture that honored the use of every part of the animal, respecting the process and finding beauty in what others might overlook. Souse meat often graced the tables of family reunions and holiday gatherings, where its bold flavor stood out among other dishes, loved by those who knew how to appreciate its depth. However, as times have changed and new food trends have emerged, souse meat has mostly faded into obscurity. The practice of pickling pig's head has lost popularity as tastes have evolved and more conventional dishes have taken center stage. Still, for those who remember it, souse meat is an indelible part of Southern culinary history, a dish that reflects the resilience and ingenuity of a people who made the most out of every resource, turning scraps into something unforgettable. Though it may no longer be a common sight on the modern dinner table, souse meat continues to live on in the memories of those who once savored its bold, briny flavor. Number 6. Coon, raccoon stew. Coon stew, once a hearty meal for many Southern families, is a dish that tells the story of self-reliance and resourcefulness. In rural areas where hunting was a way of life,
So, just want to give a little tutorial.
Raccoon meat became an essential part of the culinary landscape. Its strong, gamey flavor and tender texture made it perfect for stews, especially when combined with vegetables like potatoes, onions, and carrots, and slow-cooked to perfection. For African-American communities, coon stew wasn't just about food. It was a dish that reflected the connection to nature, survival, and the ability to make the most of what the land provided. The process of preparing coon stew is simple, yet time-consuming. The raccoon meat, often wild-caught, would be cleaned and cut into pieces, then browned in a pot with onions and garlic to develop rich flavors. It would then be simmered for hours in a broth, with the meat slowly becoming tender and absorbing the savory spices and herbs. Some recipes called for the addition of root vegetables, creating a comforting, hearty stew that would fill the belly and warm the soul. The richness of the meat, combined with the earthy vegetables and herbs, made coon stew a satisfying meal that could feed a family, even in the hardest of times. While coon stew was once a cherished dish in many Southern kitchens, it has become increasingly rare in modern times. As hunting has declined and the demand for wild game has diminished, the practice of cooking with raccoon has also faded. Today, coon stew is mostly a nostalgic dish, one that is still made by a few dedicated home cooks who remember the traditions of their grandparents and great-grandparents. For many, however, the idea of eating raccoon may seem foreign or even unappealing. But for those who grew up eating it, coon stew remains a beloved reminder of a time when meals were made from what the land provided, and every part of the animal had a purpose. In its heyday, coon stew was more than just a meal. It was a reflection of the creativity and resilience that defined Southern cooking. The dish represented the ingenuity of cooks who could take a wild animal and transform it into a nourishing, flavorful feast for their families. While it may not be a common sight on today's dinner tables, coon stew holds a special place in the hearts of those who remember the tradition, keeping alive the memory of a simpler, more resourceful time. Number 7. Red beans and rice, pre-Cajun. Before red beans and rice became synonymous with Cajun and Creole cuisine, it was a beloved soul food dish that was a staple in many African-American households, especially during the era of the Great Migration.
Of red beans and rice. This is the version from around where I live in the
This simple yet hearty dish was both comforting and economical, made with humble ingredients that could stretch for multiple meals. Red beans and rice in its earlier Southern roots wasn't just a dish, it was a reflection of resilience, community, and creativity in the kitchen, particularly during tough times when every ingredient counted. The preparation of red beans and rice begins with dried red beans, which are slow cooked with smoked meats like ham hocks, sausage, or bacon. To infuse the dish with rich, smoky flavors, onions, garlic, and bell peppers are typically sautéed to create a flavorful base, with seasonings such as thyme, bay leaves, and cayenne pepper adding depth and warmth. Once the beans are tender and the flavors have melded together, the dish is served over a bed of fluffy, white rice, creating a satisfying and filling meal. In its early form, red beans and rice was often served on Mondays, a tradition that came from New Orleans, where the dish was seen as a perfect way to use up leftovers from the previous week's Sunday meal. But beyond its practicality, it was a dish that brought people together. Whether served in large families, communal gatherings, or church events, red beans and rice was a comforting presence at the table, satisfying, affordable, and nourishing in every sense of the word. As the years passed, the dish became increasingly associated with the spicier, more complex versions found in Cajun and Creole cuisine, especially after the rise of dishes like jambalaya and gumbo. But the version that was common in African American homes, simple, unadorned, and full of flavor, has been lost in favor of its more commercialized counterparts. Though it's still a beloved dish in some Southern kitchens, it no longer holds the prominent place it once did on menus and in homes. For those who grew up eating red beans and rice in its more straightforward form, it remains an irreplaceable comfort food, a reflection of the resourcefulness and creativity that defined an era. The dish carries with it memories of family dinners, celebrations, and the shared joy of a meal that was simple yet full of love. While the more modern renditions of the dish may dominate the food scene today, the original humble red beans and rice continues to be a nostalgic treasure for those who remember it. Number 8. Cracklin' bread. Cracklin' bread is a hearty, savory dish that once held a prominent place in Southern kitchens, though today it's largely forgotten outside of a few regions.
Cracklin' cornbread is popular in Appalachia, so if you don't know...
Made with cornbread dough mixed with crispy pork cracklings, this bread was a perfect example of how Southern cooks utilized every part of the pig, transforming what could have been discarded into something flavorful and filling. Cracklin' bread wasn't just food, it was a reflection of Southern ingenuity, turning humble ingredients into something extraordinary. The process of making cracklin' bread begins with preparing the pork cracklings, which are the crispy, rendered pieces of fat left over from cooking pork. These cracklings are then mixed into a rich, golden cornbread batter, made from cornmeal, flour, buttermilk, and eggs. The result is a bread that is both tender and slightly crunchy, with the cracklings adding a savory, smoky flavor that elevates the simple cornbread to something truly special. Often baked in a cast iron skillet, the bread takes on a crispy crust, while the inside remains moist and flavorful, infused with the essence of the cracklings. Cracklin' bread was once a staple in Southern households, especially in rural communities, where people made the most of every part of the pig. It was a side dish that could accompany just about any meal, from greens to fried chicken, or it could be enjoyed on its own with a little butter or honey. Its popularity peaked during the times when hogs were raised on many family farms, and nothing was wasted. The cracklings, a byproduct of rendering the fat, found a perfect home in this bread, where their flavor could shine. Today, however, cracklin' bread has largely faded from the mainstream food scene. As pork fat has fallen out of favor with modern health trends and convenience foods have become more prominent, cracklin' bread is less commonly found in Southern kitchens. Yet, for those who remember it, the crispy, flavorful bread remains a symbol of the resourcefulness and heartiness of traditional Southern cooking. It evokes memories of simpler times, where every meal was crafted with care and love, and the humble ingredients of the land were transformed into something that could be shared with family and friends. Though it may no longer be as common, cracklin' bread still holds a special place in the hearts of those who grew up with it, a reminder of the deep connection between food, culture, and community. Number 9. Catfish and grits. Pre-grits explosion. Before the days when shrimp and grits took the culinary spotlight, catfish and grits was a beloved soul food combination that could be found on the tables of African American families across the South.
Perfectly fried catfish that I'm gonna pair with some delicious...
The dish embodied the simplicity and comfort of Southern cooking. Crisp, fried catfish paired with creamy, buttery grits. But more than just a meal, catfish and grits carried a deep cultural significance, drawing from both African American traditions and the abundance of local ingredients found in the region. It was a meal of sustenance, warmth, and a celebration of Southern flavors. Catfish, often caught fresh from local rivers or lakes, was a go-to fish for many. Its mild, slightly sweet flavor made it perfect for frying, and its sturdy texture stood up well to the crispy coating that was typical of Southern fried fish. The catfish would be dredged in a seasoned cornmeal mixture and fried to a golden crisp, its crunchy exterior giving way to a tender, flaky interior. Served hot, it was the perfect complement to the creamy grits that accompanied it. Grits, made from ground corn, were slow-cooked until they were smooth and velvety, then finished off with a generous helping of butter, salt, and pepper. The dish was simple but satisfying, combining the deep-fried catfish's richness with the soft, comforting grits to create a balanced and filling meal. While today's food scene often emphasizes the more modern versions of grits, like shrimp and grits or cheesy grits, catfish and grits was once a mainstay that embodied the everyday life of many African American families, particularly in rural communities. It was a meal that didn't require expensive ingredients or long hours of preparation, but it was nonetheless flavorful and beloved. On a Saturday evening, after a long day of work or fishing, catfish and grits was the perfect way to unwind, enjoy the company of loved ones, and share a hearty meal. Over time, as culinary trends evolved and grits became synonymous with upscale Southern dining, catfish and grits became less common in restaurants and homes. The dish that had once been a staple in working-class kitchens began to fade into obscurity, replaced by more complex variations. However, for those who grew up eating it, catfish and grits remains a nostalgic reminder of simpler times, a dish that captures the essence of soul food with its no-frills, satisfying nature. Although it may not be as prevalent today, the humble pairing of catfish and grits will always hold a special place in the heart of Southern cuisine. Number 10. Mutton stew. Mutton stew was once a hearty, flavorful dish that graced tables across the South, particularly in African-American households where resourcefulness was key to creating filling, satisfying meals. Mutton, the meat of an older sheep, has a distinctive, slightly gamey flavor that sets it apart from more common meats like beef or chicken.
Making mutton stew. Let's take a look at all the ingredients we need to.
While it may not be a dish that's commonly found today, mutton stew was once a beloved comfort food, especially during colder months when a rich, warming meal was needed to bring families together. The preparation of mutton stew is a labor of love. The mutton would be slow cooked for hours until it became tender and flavorful, often alongside a medley of root vegetables like carrots, potatoes, and turnips. Seasoned with garlic, onions, thyme, and bay leaves, the stew would simmer until all the flavors melded together, creating a rich, savory broth. Some variations also added tomatoes or vinegar, which provided a tangy contrast to the richness of the meat. The end result was a deeply satisfying, comforting stew that could feed a family for days, with the mutton's robust flavor taking center stage. Mutton stew was especially popular during a time when families had to make use of every part of the animal. The tougher cuts of meat, like mutton, were perfect for slow cooking, allowing the meat to break down and absorb the flavors of the vegetables and spices. The dish was not just about sustenance, it was about community and tradition. It brought people together around the table, often served with cornbread or biscuits to soak up the flavorful broth. In many ways, mutton stew was a dish that reflected the heart of soul food, making something extraordinary out of humble ingredients. However, as tastes have shifted and lamb and other meats have become more widely available, mutton has fallen out of favor. It's not as common in modern kitchens, especially since it can have a stronger, more acquired flavor compared to the more delicate lamb. Today, mutton stew is a rarity, though some older generations still carry the tradition of preparing it. For those who grew up with it, mutton stew remains a nostalgic reminder of times when meals were crafted with care and love, and when every cut of meat had a purpose. It's a dish that captures the essence of soul food, resourceful, rich in flavor, and steeped in history. While mutton stew may be fading from modern menus, its legacy in African-American culinary tradition remains timeless. Number 11. Cornmeal mush. Cornmeal mush is one of the simplest and most humble dishes in Southern soul food, but it carries with it the weight of history and resilience. This dish was a staple for many families, particularly during the Great Depression, when resourcefulness was necessary to stretch meals as far as possible.
We're going to be making cornmeal mush. Now, for this recipe, you're going to...
Cornmeal, an inexpensive and readily available ingredient, was used to create a thick, creamy porridge that was both filling and affordable. While cornmeal mush might not be as well known today, it was once a vital comfort food for those facing hardship. The preparation of cornmeal mush couldn't be easier, but that's part of its charm. Cornmeal, salt, and water are combined in a pot and simmered until it thickens into a smooth, velvety texture. Some families added a bit of sugar or butter for flavor, while others preferred it savory, serving it with salt or pepper. In its simplest form, cornmeal mush could be eaten on its own as a filling breakfast or side dish, but it was also often served alongside meats like fried chicken or sausage, or even topped with syrup for a sweet treat. In many homes, cornmeal mush was a practical go-to dish that could be quickly made and easily adapted depending on what was available in the pantry. During the 1930s, when money was tight and ingredients were scarce, cornmeal mush became a reliable way to feed a family. It could be made in large batches, served for multiple meals, and was incredibly versatile. Whether eaten hot or cold, cornmeal mush offered comfort and sustenance. It was a dish that made the most of what was available. Nothing fancy, but everything needed to fill the stomach and nourish the soul. As food trends have evolved, cornmeal mush has largely fallen out of favor in mainstream kitchens. Today, grits have overtaken it as the quintessential Southern cornmeal dish, and the idea of eating mush may seem outdated to some. But for those who grew up with it, cornmeal mush remains a symbol of the resourcefulness, creativity, and resilience of an earlier time. It's a reminder of the strength that came from turning simple, inexpensive ingredients into something that could feed a family through difficult times. While cornmeal mush may not be as popular today, its place in the history of soul food is secure, a comforting dish that carried families through some of the toughest times in American history. Number 12. Fried green tomatoes, pre-tomato trend. Long before fried green tomatoes became a trendy dish, thanks to the 1991 film of the same name, they were a beloved Southern classic, a dish born out of both necessity and ingenuity. Fried green tomatoes, made from unripened tomatoes that are still firm and tart, were once a way to make use of the bounty of summer tomatoes before they had fully ripened. With their crisp, golden crust and tangy bite, fried green tomatoes were a comforting snack or side dish, perfect for any Southern meal. Though they may be more popular now than ever, their roots run deep in African American and Southern culinary traditions, where they were once a mainstay in kitchens across the South. The preparation of fried green tomatoes is simple, but the result is a delicious treat. Firm green tomatoes are sliced into thick rounds and coated in a seasoned cornmeal and flour mixture before being fried until golden and crispy. The tartness of the tomatoes shines through the crunchy, savory exterior, creating a perfect balance of flavors. Often served with a dipping sauce like a tangy buttermilk dressing or remoulade, fried green tomatoes were once considered a practical dish, made with tomatoes that were too firm to eat raw, but perfect for frying. In the South, fried green tomatoes were not just a treat, they were part of everyday life. Farmers, who had an abundance of tomatoes in the summer, would often harvest some of the fruit early, before it had ripened, and use them to make this dish. It was a way to make the most of the growing season, preserving that fresh tomato flavor in a crispy, savory form. Whether served alongside a hearty meal of fried chicken, cornbread, and greens, or enjoyed as a standalone snack, fried green tomatoes brought a bit of brightness and flavor to the table. However, as food trends shifted and the culinary world became more focused on creating sophisticated dishes, fried green tomatoes became less common in mainstream cooking. They were overshadowed by more modern iterations of Southern dishes and became less of a regular fixture in many homes and restaurants. Still, for those who grew up with them, fried green tomatoes remain a nostalgic favorite, a dish that evokes memories of family gatherings, backyard cookouts, and the resourceful spirit of Southern cooking. While they may be more widely popular today, the original simple version, fried with love and care, continues to hold a special place in the hearts of those who remember their humble origins. Number 13. Fried rabbit. Fried rabbit was once a staple of Southern soul food, especially in rural communities where hunting was both a tradition and a means of putting food on the table. Rabbit, being a lean yet flavorful meat, was an ideal choice for frying, and its tender texture paired perfectly with the crispy, golden coating that is a hallmark of Southern cooking. In many ways, fried rabbit symbolized the resourcefulness of Southern cooks who would make use of whatever was available to create a satisfying and hearty meal for their families. The process of making fried rabbit begins with the careful preparation of the meat. The rabbit is first cleaned, then typically marinated in a flavorful mixture, often including buttermilk, garlic, and a variety of spices. After marinating, the rabbit is dredged in a seasoned flour and cornmeal mixture, giving it that distinctive, crunchy coating when fried. The frying process is simple, but requires attention to ensure that the meat cooks through while the coating turns perfectly crispy and golden brown. The meat itself, while lean, becomes tender and juicy when cooked properly, offering a mild, slightly gamey flavor that's complemented by the savory breading. Fried rabbit was often served as part of a larger, home-cooked Southern meal, usually accompanied by sides like collard greens, cornbread, or mashed potatoes. It was a dish that, for many, was a part of childhood memories, especially in rural households where hunting and foraging were an important part of life. The dish, with its crispy exterior and tender meat, was something to be savored, enjoyed during family gatherings or after a successful hunt. However, as times have changed and hunting has become less common, fried rabbit has largely faded from the Southern culinary scene. The dish has been replaced by more conventional meats like chicken and pork, and many younger generations are unfamiliar with the practice of eating rabbit. Yet, for those who remember it, fried rabbit represents a connection to a simpler, more self-sufficient time, where meals were made with whatever was available, and nothing went to waste. Although it may no longer be as widely prepared or appreciated, fried rabbit continues to live on in the memories of those who grew up with it, a delicious reminder of the resourcefulness and creativity that defines soul food. Number 14. Poke salad, pokeweed. Poke salad, made from the young, tender shoots of the pokeweed plant, is a dish that is as rich in history as it is in flavor. Once a staple for many Southern families, especially in rural areas, poke salad was a foraged food that sustained people during times when store-bought vegetables were scarce or too expensive. Pokeweed, though toxic in its mature form, has been a cherished wild plant for generations, with its young leaves providing a unique, earthy taste when prepared correctly. For African American families, poke salad was more than just food. It was a connection to the land and a way to utilize natural resources in a time of need. The preparation of poke salad is critical, as the plant must be cooked properly to remove its toxins. The young leaves are first boiled for several changes of water to eliminate any harmful substances. Once the water is discarded, the greens are sautéed with bacon or ham, garlic, onions, and seasonings, creating a savory, smoky flavor. The combination of the tender greens and the rich, salty bacon or ham made poke salad a comforting and satisfying dish. It was often served alongside cornbread or fried catfish, forming a complete, hearty meal. Poke salad was especially popular during the Great Depression and World War II, when food shortages and economic hardship forced people to rely on foraged foods. For many African Americans who lived in rural areas and worked as sharecroppers or farm laborers, pokeweed provided a free and nutritious meal that could be gathered from the wild. It was a dish that reflected resilience, creativity, and a deep knowledge of the land, a testament to the ingenuity and resourcefulness of those who had to make do with what they had. However, as times changed and foraging became less common, poke salad slowly faded from the mainstream Southern menu. The plant's potential for toxicity, if not prepared properly, also made it less appealing to modern cooks. Despite this, for those who grew up eating poke salad, it remains a nostalgic and treasured dish, a reminder of a time when meals were made from the earth's bounty, and every meal held a story of survival and ingenuity. Though poke salad may no longer be as widely made today, its place in the history of soul food is undeniable, a flavorful link to the past and a symbol of the resourcefulness that defined generations. Number 15. Okra soup, pre-gumbo. Before gumbo became the iconic dish it is today, okra soup was a beloved Southern favorite that celebrated the unique texture and flavor of this hearty vegetable. Okra, with its distinctive mucilaginous or slimy quality, was often cooked into a rich, savory soup, sometimes with tomatoes, onions, garlic, and a variety of seasonings. It was a dish that found its roots deep in Southern kitchens, especially in African American homes, where it was revered for both its versatility and its ability to stretch a meal. For many, okra soup was not just a dish. It was a reminder of a simpler time when meals were crafted from the bounty of the land and every ingredient had a purpose. The preparation of okra soup is relatively simple, but requires a good understanding of how to balance the flavors. Fresh okra is typically chopped and sautéed with onions and garlic, creating a flavorful base. Then, tomatoes, stock, and seasoning, like thyme, bay leaves, and a touch of cayenne, are added to the pot, and everything simmers together to create a hearty, comforting soup. The natural slime of the okra thickens the broth, giving it a smooth, velvety texture that coats the vegetables and any added meat, such as smoked sausage or pork. The dish can be served over rice or with cornbread, making it a filling, satisfying meal. In its early days, okra soup was often made using the ingredients that were easily accessible, especially during the late summer and early fall, when okra was in season. It was a dish that helped make use of the abundant crop of okra, which grew easily in the southern climate. The soup's simplicity and heartiness made it a favorite in rural communities, where fresh, local ingredients were often the foundation of every meal. However, as Southern cuisine evolved and gumbo grew in popularity, becoming a more complex, spicy, and iconic dish, okra soup began to fade into the background. Gumbo, with its deeper flavors, multiple layers of ingredients, and cultural significance, overshadowed okra soup, and the simpler dish gradually disappeared from most menus. Today, you're more likely to encounter gumbo or fried okra than the humble okra soup that once graced many Southern tables. Yet, for those who remember it, okra soup remains a nostalgic taste of the past, a dish that evokes memories of family gatherings, community meals, and the resourcefulness that defined Southern soul food. While it may not be as commonly made today, the simple, comforting nature of okra soup continues to be cherished by those who grew up with it, keeping alive a piece of the Southern culinary heritage that shaped generations. Number 16. Chicken feet soup. Chicken feet soup, a dish that may seem unfamiliar or even unusual to some, was once a beloved and nutritious part of Southern soul food. During times when every part of the animal was used to its fullest potential, chicken feet were transformed into a rich, flavorful broth that was both satisfying and nourishing. Although it may have fallen out of favor in modern kitchens, for many African American families, chicken feet soup was a comforting reminder of a time when no ingredient was overlooked and food was valued for both its flavor and its ability to sustain. The preparation of chicken feet soup begins with cleaning the feet thoroughly, removing any remaining feathers, and ensuring they're properly washed. The feet are then simmered for hours with vegetables like onions, carrots, celery, and garlic, along with seasonings like thyme, bay leaves, and black pepper. As the soup simmers, the collagen and gelatin from the chicken feet gradually melt into the broth, creating a rich, silky texture that gives the soup a unique mouthfeel. The long cooking time allows the flavors to meld and the feet to become tender, often falling apart into the broth, making each spoonful flavorful and full of comforting depth. Chicken feet soup was a dish of necessity, especially during harder times when families had to make the most out of what they had. Chicken feet were an inexpensive, readily available ingredient that could stretch a meal. The resulting broth was packed with collagen, which was believed to be beneficial for the joints and skin, adding an extra layer of health benefits to the dish. Served with cornbread or over rice, chicken feet soup was both a practical and indulgent meal, enjoyed for its deep flavor and the richness of its ingredients. Today, chicken feet soup is largely forgotten, and many younger generations may have never tasted it or even seen it prepared. As food trends have shifted and access to a wider variety of meats has become more common, chicken feet have become a rarity in mainstream kitchens. However, for those who grew up eating chicken feet soup, it remains a cherished memory, a dish that not only filled the stomach, but also connected people to their cultural roots. While it may not be as popular today, the soup stands as a reminder of the resourcefulness, creativity, and deep culinary tradition that define African American soul food. The next time you hear about this dish, think of the love and care that went into making something extraordinary from the most unexpected of ingredients. Number 17. Collard green pie. Collard greens are often thought of as a classic southern side dish, but in days past, they were transformed into something even more unique: collard green pie. This savory pie, with its unexpected combination of tender collard greens and a flaky crust, was a dish born from the Southern tradition of making use of what was available. While it may seem a bit unusual today, collard green pie was a creative way to elevate humble greens into something extraordinary, all while reflecting the resourcefulness and creativity that defined African American soul food. The preparation of collard green pie begins with cooking the collard greens until they are tender, often sautéing them with onions, garlic, and a bit of bacon or ham for added flavor. The greens are then drained to remove excess moisture and mixed with eggs, cheese, and seasoning to form a filling. This mixture is poured into a pie crust, often made from scratch, and then baked until golden and set. The result is a savory pie with a rich, eggy filling, complemented by the smoky flavor of the greens and the satisfying crunch of the crust. Collard green pie was more than just a creative way to use leftover greens. It was a dish that added a sense of celebration to everyday meals. It often graced the tables during holiday gatherings, family reunions, and special occasions. It was a comforting dish that brought people together, offering a hearty, flavorful alternative to more traditional sides like collard greens with cornbread. The richness of the egg and cheese filling paired perfectly with the deep, earthy flavor of the collard greens, making it a meal that satisfied both the body and the soul. However, as tastes evolved and new food trends took hold, collard green pie began to fade into obscurity. With the rise of more common dishes like collard greens and cornbread, or the more widely accepted quiche, collard green pie fell out of favor. Its unusual combination of ingredients and presentation no longer fit into modern dining, and it became a dish more likely to be found in family cookbooks or oral traditions than on contemporary menus. Yet, for those who remember it, collard green pie remains a nostalgic reminder of the innovation and heart of Southern cooking. It's a dish that took a beloved green, often relegated to the status of a side dish, and elevated it into something special. While it may not be a regular feature on today's tables, collard green pie continues to hold a special place in the hearts of those who grew up with it, keeping alive a piece of the rich culinary legacy that helped shape soul food traditions. Number 18. Sweet potato pone. Sweet potato pone is a classic Southern dessert that once had a place at nearly every family gathering and holiday table. This dense, spiced, and moist cake-like dish, made from mashed sweet potatoes, sugar, eggs, and butter, is a perfect example of how soul food often combines humble ingredients to create something rich and comforting. Although sweet potato pie has become the more well-known counterpart, sweet potato pone holds its own special place in the hearts of those who remember it, a sweet, satisfying treat that is both nostalgic and deeply rooted in Southern culinary traditions. The process of making sweet potato pone begins with cooking and mashing the sweet potatoes until they are smooth. The mashed potatoes are then mixed with a combination of sugar, butter, eggs, cinnamon, and nutmeg, spices that complement the natural sweetness of the potatoes and give the pone its signature flavor. Once all the ingredients are combined, the mixture is poured into a baking dish and baked until it sets into a firm yet soft, cake-like consistency. The final result is a beautifully golden dessert with a soft, pudding-like texture on the inside and a slightly caramelized exterior. Often served as a side or dessert, sweet potato pone offers a warm, comforting bite with just the right amount of sweetness and spice. Unlike the more common sweet potato pie, which is made with a pie crust and has a custard-like filling, sweet potato pone is crustless and resembles a more solid cake. This made it easier to prepare for large gatherings or family meals where a dessert needed to stretch. It was also a way to use the abundance of sweet potatoes, which were widely grown in the South and could be harvested in large quantities. The simplicity of sweet potato pone also made it an affordable dessert for families, providing a delicious end to a meal without requiring fancy ingredients. However, as food trends changed and new dessert recipes became more popular, sweet potato pone slowly faded from mainstream Southern menus. Sweet potato pie, with its silky texture and iconic status, eclipsed pone in many households, and as store-bought desserts became more accessible, the homemade, rustic qualities of sweet potato pone were lost in the shuffle. Yet, for those who remember it, sweet potato pone is more than just a dessert. It's a sweet reminder of family gatherings, homemade treats, and the tradition of turning simple, everyday ingredients into something special. While it may not be as commonly made today, sweet potato pone continues to live on in the memories of those who enjoyed it during holidays or as an everyday treat, a testament to the resourcefulness and love that are central to soul food traditions. Number 19. Liver and onions, pre-health craze. Liver and onions was once a beloved dish in many Southern kitchens, prized for its rich, robust flavor and its affordability. Liver, particularly beef liver, was a tough but nutritious cut of meat, often cooked until tender and paired with the sweetness of caramelized onions to balance its bold, iron-rich taste. For African-American families, liver and onions was more than just a meal. It was a practical, comforting dish that made use of every part of the animal and provided a filling, nourishing meal for the whole family. It was also one of those timeless, heartwarming dishes that could be served at any time of day, whether as a hearty breakfast, a quick dinner, or part of a larger feast. The preparation of liver and onions is simple yet satisfying. First, the liver is lightly seasoned, then quickly pan-fried until it's browned on the outside, but still tender on the inside. Meanwhile, onions are sautéed in butter or oil until they're soft and caramelized, releasing their natural sweetness. Once the liver is cooked, the onions are piled on top, and sometimes the dish is finished off with a dash of vinegar or a splash of broth to deglaze the pan and add extra flavor. The result is a savory dish that pairs the hearty, slightly bitter taste of liver with the soft, sweet onions, creating a comforting contrast in each bite. It's often served with a side of mashed potatoes, rice, or cornbread, all perfect for soaking up the savory juices. Liver and onions was especially popular in the mid-20th century when it was often prepared as a budget-friendly meal. Organ meats like liver were not only affordable, but also packed with nutrients, providing essential vitamins and minerals that were necessary for maintaining health during hard times. During the post-war era, when families needed to make every meal stretch, liver and onions became a go-to dish that was both economical and hearty. It was also a symbol of the Southern tradition of making the most out of every part of the animal, a philosophy deeply embedded in African-American soul food. However, as health trends began to shift in the latter half of the 20th century, liver and onions started to fall out of favor. As concerns about cholesterol and the strong, sometimes acquired taste of liver grew, the dish was pushed to the margins of mainstream cooking. Modern palates, now accustomed to leaner cuts of meat and less intensely flavored dishes, often shy away from liver, and with it, liver and onions became a rarity on many Southern tables. Yet, for those who grew up eating it, liver and onions is a nostalgic reminder of a time when meals were simple, nourishing, and prepared with care. It represents an era of resourcefulness and a deep appreciation for the sustenance that food could provide. Though it may not be as common today, liver and onions will always have a special place in the heart of soul food, a dish that turned a humble organ meat into something delicious and comforting. a true testament to the creativity and love that went into every meal. Number 20. Mustard greens with salt pork. Mustard greens with salt pork was a beloved dish in Southern soul food, offering a flavorful combination of the slightly peppery greens and the rich, savory taste of salt pork. This dish, which can be traced back to the days of slavery and the sharecropper era, became a symbol of resilience and ingenuity. Salt pork, often a cheap and preserved meat, was used to impart depth and richness to the otherwise simple mustard greens, making it a satisfying and filling meal. For African American families, mustard greens with salt pork was more than just a meal. It was a connection to the land, to history, and to the practice of using every ingredient to its fullest potential. The preparation of mustard greens with salt pork begins with first cleaning and trimming the greens, which have a robust, slightly bitter flavor. The salt pork is then fried until crispy, releasing its fat, which is used to cook the greens. Onions, garlic, and a bit of vinegar are often added to help balance the richness of the pork and the bitterness of the greens. The greens are then simmered in the flavorful pork fat, absorbing the smoky, salty essence of the meat. The result is a dish that's savory and slightly tangy, with a deep, comforting flavor that fills the soul. Often served with cornbread or a side of rice, mustard greens with salt pork were the perfect accompaniment to many Southern meals. This dish has deep roots in African American culinary history. During slavery, enslaved people made do with whatever scraps and leftovers they had, and salt pork was a common preserved meat. Mustard greens, which were often grown in gardens or found in the wild, became a staple green because they were hardy, nutritious, and easy to cook in large quantities. Over time, mustard greens with salt pork became a staple in many African American households, particularly in the rural South, where the practice of growing your own food and making meals from whatever was available became a way of life. However, as tastes and food trends evolved, mustard greens with salt pork slowly faded from the everyday meal rotation. The rise of healthier eating habits, coupled with modern preferences for leaner meats, made salt pork less common. The dish is now a rarity in many households, with some opting for ham hocks or smoked turkey as substitutes for the salt pork. For those who grew up eating mustard greens with salt pork, the dish is a nostalgic reminder of home-cooked meals that carried the taste of history, survival, and love. While it may not be as common on modern tables, mustard greens with salt pork will always hold a cherished place in the heart of Southern cooking, symbolizing the resourcefulness and the flavors of a time when every meal was made from the land and every bite was treasured. Number 21. Smothered chops. Smothered chops, a comforting and hearty Southern dish, was once a staple in many African American households. Whether made with pork, lamb, or beef, this dish featured meat that was browned and then smothered in a rich, savory gravy, creating a meal that was both tender and flavorful. Smothered chops were often served with rice, mashed potatoes, or cornbread, which soaked up the delicious gravy, making every bite comforting and satisfying. This dish represents the essence of Southern cooking. Simple ingredients transformed into a meal that is both filling and full of flavor. The preparation of smothered chops begins by browning the meat in a skillet, which helps develop a deep caramelized flavor. After the chops are browned on both sides, they are removed from the pan, and a flavorful gravy is made using the pan drippings. Onions, garlic, and bell peppers are typically sautéed in the drippings, then flour is added to create a roux. The gravy is enriched with stock, seasoning, and sometimes a splash of vinegar or Worcestershire sauce to add depth and balance to the flavors. The browned chops are then returned to the pan, where they simmer in the gravy until they become tender and infused with all the savory goodness. The result is a dish that's rich, flavorful, and comforting, with the gravy becoming the star of the meal, poured generously over the meat and any side dishes. Smothered chops were often made for special occasions or family dinners, where they could be enjoyed by all. The dish was a way to elevate a cut of meat, turning it into a hearty, satisfying meal that could feed a crowd. For many African American families, this dish was a symbol of family tradition and love, passed down through generations. The slow-cooked nature of the dish meant that it could be prepared with care and served to bring everyone together around the table. As times have changed and cooking has become more streamlined and focused on lighter, quicker meals, smothered chops have slowly faded from mainstream menus. Many people have replaced the indulgent gravies and fried meats with healthier options, and smothered chops have been overshadowed by leaner cuts of meat and more contemporary cooking trends. Despite this, for those who grew up with it, smothered chops remain a beloved comfort food, a reminder of family gatherings, home-cooked meals, and the flavors that shaped their childhoods. Though the dish may not be as commonly prepared today, it will always hold a special place in the heart of Southern cuisine as a symbol of the warmth and love that soul food represents. Number 22, pig's ear salad. Pig's ear salad, once a unique Southern delicacy, is a dish that reflects the resourcefulness of African American cooking. Made from the thinly sliced, tender ears of pigs, this dish was a prime example of utilizing every part of the animal, a hallmark of soul food. Pig's ear salad is an acquired taste, with its gelatinous texture and smoky, meaty flavor. But for many Southern families, it was a beloved dish that showcased the ingenuity and resilience of those who made the most of what they had. It's a reminder of a time when nothing went to waste and every part of the animal was transformed into something delicious. The preparation of pig's ear salad begins with cleaning and boiling the pig's ears until they are tender. Once boiled, the ears are sliced thinly and then combined with a tangy vinaigrette dressing made from vinegar, mustard, and spices. Onions, bell peppers, and sometimes hot peppers are added for flavor, creating a zesty, crunchy salad that has a bite to it. The salad is often chilled before serving, allowing the flavors to meld together and become more pronounced. Its unique combination of smoky, tangy, and slightly chewy textures makes it a one-of-a-kind dish that, despite its humble origins, became a treat for those who enjoyed it. In the past, pig's ear salad was commonly served as an appetizer or a side dish, often alongside other hearty Southern staples like fried chicken, cornbread, and collard greens. It was a way to make use of what might have been considered an undesirable part of the pig and turn it into something special. During times when meat was scarce and families needed to stretch their food, pig's ears were an affordable, accessible ingredient that provided both flavor and nutrition. However, as food trends have shifted and modern eating habits have become more focused on health-conscious choices, pig's ear salad has largely fallen out of favor. The idea of eating pig's ears seems foreign or unappealing to many today, and the dish is now mostly a rarity found in select Southern homes or among those who continue to embrace traditional recipes. Yet, for those who grew up with pig's ear salad, it remains a cherished reminder of a time when every meal was crafted with creativity, care, and a deep appreciation for the resources available. Though pig's ear salad may not be commonly made today, it's still a significant part of Southern culinary history. It embodies the spirit of soul food, resourceful, hearty, and flavorful, while honoring the traditions of a community that found ways to create something extraordinary from every ingredient. For those who remember it, pig's ear salad is more than just food. It's a link to the past, a piece of history that celebrates the resilience and creativity that shaped soul food traditions. Number 23, butter beans and ham hocks. Butter beans and ham hocks is a dish that embodies the heart and soul of Southern comfort food. The creamy, tender texture of the butter beans, paired with the smoky richness of the ham hocks, creates a flavorful, satisfying meal that has been cherished in African American homes for generations. It's a dish born of simplicity, made from humble ingredients that were often easy to find and affordable. Yet, it's packed with flavors that nourish both the body and the spirit. While it may not be as widely prepared today, butter beans and ham hocks remains a nostalgic reminder of the past, when meals were crafted with care and every ingredient had its purpose. The preparation of butter beans and ham hocks starts with slow cooking the ham hocks to release their savory flavor and rich fat. As the hocks cook, they create a base for the dish, infusing the beans with a deep, smoky taste. Once the ham hocks are tender, butter beans are added to the pot, along with onions, garlic, and seasoning. The beans soak up the flavors of the ham hocks, creating a hearty, flavorful broth that makes each spoonful satisfying. The beans themselves, soft and creamy when fully cooked, become the perfect complement to the salty richness of the ham hocks, making the dish a comforting and fulfilling meal. Often served with cornbread or rice, butter beans and ham hocks provide the ideal combination of protein, vegetables, and carbs. This dish has its roots in the Southern tradition of using every part of the pig, with ham hocks providing the base for many stews and soups. In the past, ham hocks were often a cheaper cut of meat, which made them a go-to for families needing to stretch their meals. The addition of butter beans, which were also inexpensive and easy to grow, created a dish that was both affordable and satisfying. Over time, it became a beloved part of Southern cooking, especially in African American households, where meals were often made from scratch and filled with flavor. However, as tastes evolved and modern diets became more focused on leaner meats and lighter meals, butter beans and ham hocks gradually disappeared from mainstream menus. With With the rise of fast food and more health-conscious eating habits, the slow-cooked, hearty nature of this dish became less popular. Still, for those who grew up eating butter beans and ham hocks, it remains a treasured memory, a dish that reflects the resourcefulness, community, and love that defined home-cooked Southern meals. While it may not be as commonly made today, butter beans and ham hocks will always hold a special place in the history of soul food, symbolizing the comfort and tradition that continues to define the rich legacy of African-American cuisine. Number 24. Fried okra, pre-fried food frenzy. Fried okra, a quintessential Southern dish, holds a special place in the hearts of many who grew up in the South, particularly within African-American communities. While it's still a beloved dish today, its simpler pre-fried food frenzy version, lightly battered and fried to crispy perfection, was a staple in countless households before deep frying became synonymous with fast food culture. Okra, with its slightly sticky texture when cooked, was once seen as a humble vegetable that transformed into a beloved comfort food when coated in seasoned cornmeal and fried. The dish is both a reminder of Southern ingenuity and a reflection of how people turned basic ingredients into something special. To prepare fried okra, the pods are first sliced into rounds, often dipped in a mixture of buttermilk or egg, and then dredged in cornmeal seasoned with salt, pepper, and other spices like garlic powder or paprika. The okra is then fried in hot oil until it's golden brown and crispy on the outside, yet tender on the inside. The result is a dish that combines the satisfying crunch of the cornmeal crust with the soft, almost creamy texture of the okra itself. Often served as a side dish or appetizer, fried okra was a perfect complement to the heavier fare found in Southern meals, such as fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread. Fried okra was a dish born from necessity and resourcefulness. In times when access to fresh produce was limited, okra became a go-to vegetable because of its ability to thrive in the Southern heat and its versatility in cooking. It could be eaten in a variety of ways, sautéed, pickled, or stewed, but frying it was the method that truly brought out its unique flavor. It was a dish often made to use up an abundant crop of okra from family gardens, allowing every part of the plant to be used. As food trends evolved, particularly with the rise of fast food and health-conscious eating habits, fried okra began to fade in popularity. While it remains a staple at Southern restaurants, the frequency with which it was made at home diminished as more modern and lighter cooking methods took center stage. Additionally, as Southern cuisine became more refined and sophisticated, the simpler, more rustic style of fried okra became less common. For those who grew up with it, however, fried okra is a nostalgic and cherished dish. It's a reminder of family meals, garden-to-table cooking, and the way food was once prepared with love and care, turning everyday ingredients into something that brought people together. While fried okra may not be as widely made in modern kitchens, it will always remain a symbol of Southern comfort food, a crispy, golden dish that continues to bring warmth and joy to those who remember it fondly. Number 25. Mushmelon soup. Mushmelon soup, often forgotten in modern kitchens, was once a creative and refreshing dish commonly enjoyed in the southern United States, particularly during the summer months when the sweet, juicy flesh of the muskmelon or mushmelon was in abundance. This cool, savory soup made use of the season's bounty and reflected the resourcefulness of Southern cooks, who could turn a simple melon into something uniquely flavorful. While it may sound unusual today, mushmelon soup was a beloved dish that provided both nourishment and relief from the southern heat, making it a refreshing treat on hot days. To prepare mushmelon soup, the melon was first peeled and chopped into chunks, then blended with ingredients like onions, garlic, and sometimes peppers to create a sweet, savory balance. The soup was often seasoned with salt, a dash of sugar, and sometimes a splash of vinegar or lemon juice to enhance its flavors. The resulting soup could be served either chilled or at room temperature, offering a cooling contrast to the usual hearty southern fare. Some recipes included a bit of cream or milk for added richness, making the dish more substantial and comforting. It was often eaten as an appetizer or a light first course during summer meals. Mushmelon soup wasn't just about using up excess fruit. It was a way to bring a refreshing and light option to the table during a time when rich, heavy meals dominated the dining scene. The dish made the most of the muskmelon's natural sweetness, pairing it with savory ingredients to create a surprising and satisfying balance of flavors. It was particularly popular among families who had access to homegrown melons, which were easy to cultivate in the South's warm climate. As times changed and food preferences evolved, mushmelon soup began to fade into obscurity. It's now a rarity in most Southern kitchens, replaced by other, more widely known dishes. The idea of using melon in a savory dish seemed odd to many, and as palates became accustomed to more familiar flavors, mushmelon soup was slowly forgotten. However, for those who remember it, this dish is a nostalgic reminder of simpler times, when creativity in the kitchen led to unexpected delights and when fresh produce was celebrated in every meal. Though mushmelon soup may no longer be as common on modern tables, it remains an important part of Southern culinary history. It represents the spirit of using what the land provides and transforming simple ingredients into something extraordinary. For those who grew up with it, mushmelon soup is a sweet and savory reminder of summer days spent enjoying homemade meals, showcasing the ingenuity and heart of Southern soul food. Outro, a legacy to remember. As we reflect on these 25 forgotten soul foods, it's clear that each dish tells a story of survival, resourcefulness, and love. These recipes, once commonplace in Southern kitchens, are more than just meals. They are cultural touchstones, deeply connected to the African American experience and the broader Southern tradition. They represent a time when nothing went to waste, when meals were made from what the land and the animals provided, and when cooking was an act of creativity and community. In today's fast-paced world, many of these dishes have been overshadowed by convenience foods and modern trends. Yet, they hold an undeniable power to bring us back to a simpler, more connected time. They remind us of a time when food was prepared with care, when each meal had its own story, and when a humble dish could become a source of pride and tradition. While some of these forgotten foods may no longer be made as frequently, they remain a cherished part of the rich tapestry of soul food, a tradition that continues to influence modern kitchens today. Rediscovering these dishes is more than just about nostalgia. It's about honoring the past and preserving the culinary legacy that helped shape the food we know and love today. From the tender, smoky richness of butter beans and ham hocks to the creative innovation of collard green pie, these meals are a celebration of the resilience, ingenuity, and heart of African American cooks who, over generations, turned humble ingredients into extraordinary dishes. Whether you've tasted these foods yourself or are learning about them for the first time, they are a reminder that soul food is not just about the recipes, it's about the people, the history, and the traditions that shaped each meal. As we close this journey through the forgotten soul foods that have faded into history, let's remember that food, like memory, is something worth preserving. These dishes deserve to be remembered, celebrated, and perhaps even rediscovered in today's kitchens. After all, the heart of soul food isn't just in the ingredients, it's in the love and tradition that we pass down with every meal we make.